Welcome everybody to the Snow Valley Council ordinary meeting of the 11th of December. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. I'd like to first of all welcome the Mayor of Snow Valley, John Rooney, who's joined us today. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just a notice to everyone, we've got a large public gallery here today and limited space in the chambers, so we've organised the room to optimise and make safer space available for the public. And we've got staff available to assist if you need. For those not familiar with council meeting procedure, we're required to adhere to the Code of Meeting Practice in terms of following the agenda and maintaining order in the meeting. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay respects to elders past and present. Apologies and leave of absence. I've got an apology from Councillor Benjamin. Someone like to move that. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Ross, all in favour? Carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through the Chair. I'd like to call over less than significant non-pecuniary interest in item 10.1 due to the offering to volunteer at the bar for the event. I'm not an executive member of the committee and I believe my interest in the event will not cause me to have any bias, and I will act in the interest of the whole community, and therefore I do not propose to leave the meeting for the discussion and vote unless Council wishes me to do so.
Thank you. Public forum. Dr. Neil Hamilton to address Council regarding item 9.2, deamalgamation. Dr. Hamilton. 5 minutes.
Where would you like to stand? Thank you for letting me address you today on behalf of Save Tumbarumba Shire and the Tumbarumba community. You're considering a report today, item 9.2 on deamalgamation, that from our perspective is full of misdirection, it's full of errors and it's full of inaccuracies which invalidate its message. I've only got time to outline a few of those, and I think it's very important that you understand that it is both legal and in the interest of the community for the council to provide the rights to Tumbarumba residents that were ripped away when the New South Wales government sacked our council. So let's begin. The report begins by stating that the council has received a proposal from Save Tumbarumba Shire to formalise a proposal to the New South Wales government in support of demerging the former Tumbarumba Shire. This is completely wrong. Save Tumbarumba Shire approached the Mayor and Deputy Mayor a couple of months ago to encourage them to putting a proposal to the New South Wales government to deamalgamate former Tumbarumba Shire. This is entirely legal under the Local Government Act. It was indeed already encouraged by the Minister for Local Government when we met with her in September. We've communicated with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor informally several times, but have never made formal representations to Council on this matter. We have, however, provided the Mayor with draft model documents for its consideration and a discussion paper answering numerous questions about demergers to assist with any Council deliberations on this matter, and hope that these may be circulated to the councillors in the near future. Throughout the report are negative references to pressure from Save Tumbarumba Shire and the only benefits of demerging being appeasing and satisfying the demands of STS. These comments are irrelevant, pejorative and unprofessional. There are also assertions that demerging would undermine any reputational credibility of the council. I challenge those assertions, completely unsupported as they are, with a simple statement. If Snowy Valley's council continues to oppose the rights of the people of the former Tumbarumba Shire, the only ones who will lose credibility will be the council itself. Repeated references in the report to petitions, plebiscites and referenda are either misdirections or ignorant of the New South Wales Local Government Act. There are no requirements or even suggestions under the Act, the local government regulation, or any other piece of legislation that such a process need occur. Save Tumbarumba Shire is not seeking a plebiscite, having held one in 2016 with overwhelming results. The most absurd of the references in the report to referendum is the statement that Section 16 of the Local Government Act does not include demerger as a topic for constitutional referendum. I'm not aware that anyone other than the author has ever suggested that a constitutional referendum is a pathway to demerger. You may be aware that there was no referendum before the government sacked our council, no petition, no plebiscite to justify their decision. One is not required. The facts about deamalgamation are simple, and they are not as is written in the report. The Local Government Act makes clear in Chapter 9 that a proposal may be made by the Minister, by a council, or by a local community to establish, to alter, or dissolve other area. The idea that demerger is impossible because there is no head of power to enable it is simply legally incorrect. I have two legal opinions which say that this is just plain wrong. If, however, the General Manager is right, then equally every council, including yours, established by amalgamation is illegal. I can only say I'll watch the resulting court cases with interest. The report states that Save Tumbarumba Shire has submitted a petition to the government to demerge Snowy Valleys Council. This is simply not correct. It shows a fundamental misunderstanding of both the Act and what's happened over the past 2 years in your council area. The facts are that Save Tumbarumba Shire submitted a proposal to the Minister under the Act on behalf of the former Tumbarumba Shire community to re-establish the former local government area of Tumbarumba Shire. The proposal is supported by more than 10% of the electors of Snowy Valleys Shire, the single requirement of the Act, under the Act to make it valid. Today, we received a letter from the Chief Legal Officer of the Office of Local Government, dated 3rd of December. We received it at 11 o'clock this morning, saying that we're 300 signatures short. I don't anticipate this is a problem. We collected more than that number of signatures in one morning in Tumut, so I suspect that by this afternoon in Tumbarumba we will have satisfied that requirement. The report continues by insinuating that as government appears to have no appetite for demergers, it would be unwise for council to consider one. This is simply an uninformed opinion. The government cancelled the amalgamations of almost all the forced mergers it inflicted on the citizens of New South Wales when it realised that they were illegal and that it was going to lose the High Court case. But it continued with sacking councils like Tumbarumba, where no legal action was taken. In short, if we had taken the government to court, you would not be sitting there. That's how inequitable this situation is. The reality is that there is a state election in March next year. I leave it to you to forecast who might win, but provide another simple fact for your information. Every party in the lower house of New South Wales Parliament has publicly committed to giving forcibly merged councils the opportunity to demerge. And that is by a vote of the former Tumbarumba Shire, not its Snowy Valleys Council.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. That's your comment. Thank you very much.
Can I close by saying thank you? I'll close by saying people of Tumbarumba Shire have no ill will towards Snowy Valleys Council, and I'm sure they'll join me in wishing you and councillors a very happy and safe festive season. We only ask that you consider seriously the wishes of our communities and the right to determine our own futures under our own leadership. With your help, all of our shires will continue to prosper and cooperate in future years. Thank you.
Well spoken.
Thank you. We'll now move to confirmation of minutes. Minutes of the meeting of the 22nd of November. Councillor Whitman, Councillor Lana. In favour? Okay. Arising from those? Nothing arising from those minutes? Okay. We'll move on to I'll put that vote. All in favour? Yep. Carried. Presentation of the 2017-2018 annual financial statements.
I'm happy to move that.
Councillor Ham, Councillor Love. In favour? Carried. Okay. Brad, would you like to comment?
I'm happy to take any questions on them, but it's quite an unusual process where you've already seen the financial statements and presented them for presentation to the auditor to conduct the audit activities, and then subsequently at the end here we are. The most pleasing part of the process is we achieved our set goal, which was an unqualified or unmodified audit opinion. So that was the task that we set out at the beginning, and we've achieved that at the conclusion. The financial statements are quite awkward to understand because of that truncated or 15.5-month period in 2017. So it's really quite difficult to get a meaningful alignment, especially in your profit and loss, between the prior year activity or prior period activity of this current year. And then because of the nature of the way accounting works for not-for-profits, the $15 million worth of funding that come in the 2017 year was all recorded as revenue, and progressively it's going out as it's being spent in expenses. And so trying to get a meaningful year-on-year comparison is, again, something that's quite challenging in the 18 period. And we, from a financial reporting perspective, would start to see something described as more normal transactional activity commencing in the 19 period. Is probably the best way to describe it. But from an audit perspective, we did site visits both Tumbarumba and Tumut, navigated the different systems and processes in place at both, and get to an end outcome of an unmodified opinion.
Any questions of Councillor Ham?
Yeah, Brad, there's been a discrepancy within our finances of 2.5 million, and
Sure.
which we're getting some advice on. But do you have a comment on that?
When you say discrepancy?
In the reserves.
Through the chair, we had consolidated some of our reserves during the end of financial year.
Okay.
We didn't need to have 3 separate leave liability reserves, so we've reduced some of those to have some unrestricted cash through the year. So the reserves, cash hasn't gone missing. It's just we have reduced our restrictions on that cash.
So that's separate from what you've been auditing.
No, it also sits inside it, but I think what your question is around, there was some, as we brought together the 2 systems, and across the state there's somewhere they're bringing together 3 systems, the different councils had different philosophies around the leave reserves and plant replacement reserves and things like that. And so as they've been brought together, they've then also forecast a new restriction point, because these are internal restrictions of which you can decide by vote of council. And so what we've done is, instead of just basically adding the 2 together in aggregate, then made a change to the actual restricted level of cash. What hasn't changed is the total cash that you hold. So inside total cash is then 3 different buckets. There's externally restricted, and fundamentally in there is your sewer and water funding, and whatever's raised in water and sewer needs to be spent on water and sewer. Then you have internal restrictions, and council uses that as a way to restrict money away for particular projects, so plant replacement reserve, employee leave entitlements, and these type of things. And you can change and modify that level of restriction, and then what's left is unrestricted cash, and that's basically what's left and available for free and discretionary spending of council, and is effectively the measure of solvency. The item you're tagging is back in the internal restrictions, where when they brought the 2 together, they then recast a new point of how much you need to set aside. And across New South Wales local government, especially on that employee leave entitlement one, some range between fully funding it, 100 cents in the dollar, through down to the minimum is around 18 cents in the dollar, and picking a point in there that's appropriate for treasury management, if you like. It's not a discrepancy, it's more a recasting of what was set aside as an internal restriction.
So, and that leads quite well into the simple question of how do you think our viability is as council?
Your viability? There's no doubt you, like every other rural council, has a number of challenges. You've got a significant road network that needs to be maintained. And depreciation is a really strong challenge based on the current levels of government funding that support that. As it currently stands, there's metrics or ratios that you can perform against. Council certainly achieved a pass mark on more than half of those. We were challenged in operating performance ratio and building infrastructure renewal ratio, which is in Special Schedule 7, which has some judgment calls around it. But at the moment, you've got, my view is a bit one of looking backwards, not necessarily looking forwards. But so, can you pay your debts as and when they fall due, which is a litmus test for the next 12 months? Absolutely. If you continued on the same trajectory into the future, Snowy Valleys, like a number of other rural councils, is going to have a challenge, because there's simply not the revenue avenues for being self-generated from a revenue perspective relative to the road network that you need to maintain, would be it's probably my personal view more than the view of the New South Wales Audit Office. But the funding model is very challenging for just the sheer kilometres of road you need to maintain.
Yeah, okay. Now, I have one final question. I don't know whether it's to you or to Sarah, and it just, I was interested that we're paying 7% interest, and I'm just wondering, in today's climate, that seems like an awful lot, and can that be reviewed?
Through the chair, yes. If you look at those high interest rate loans during the year, they relate to the high end sort of infrastructure projects like water and sewer. We do have access to the Treasury Corporation loans now that are sort of more better off for us, but it'll have to be assessed and it will go to council as a report. Yes.
Any further questions for you? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Right, we'll move on to page 19, which is the de-amalgamation governance and financial report. I'll move all three. Councillor Larders moved all three. Councillor Smith has seconded. Councillor Ham, you want to say something?
Well, I would be happy to support movement of 1 and 2, but not 3.
Councillor Larders. Do you want to move them individually? Do you want to move 1 and 2 first?
Yeah, happy to do it.
Happy to do it. Are you happy for that, Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Okay. So, Councillor Larders, speak on that.
I essentially don't disagree with anything that's been recommended there in the report. Essentially this is a decision of the state government. We've heard from the opposition that even if they were of a mindset to demerge, that it would be at the ratepayers' expense. That's been told to the Mayor and myself by the opposition minister responsible for local government. So I wholeheartedly agree with the comments and recommendation in the executive summary and report. Essentially, I think the council is working together really well. That we're been very fortunate to have Councillor Wright and Councillor Ham as part of our council, and taking on Tumbarumba, I think, has been a great opportunity and a great success. The Shire is a lot larger, and it's we've been very well supported by the Berejiklian and Barilaro government with funding for infrastructure and services that I think areas like Tumbarumba would never have received unless we ventured into this pathway. When we look at the list of achievements that alone in Tumbarumba, we look at the bike track yesterday and the rail trail and the numerous other projects that have been developed here. There's an obvious case to say, well, it has been a success, and that's obviously due to the hard work of the staff and the councillors and the community to make it a success. And I know there's some detractors to it, and I can understand that they're philosophically opposed to what happened, but at the end of the day we have to move on, and I think we're doing great things. So.
Councillor Larders, can you speak against? No? Look, I'd just like to thank Dr. Hamilton for his presentation, never easy up front, and also for the members of the State Tumbarumba Shire that Councillor Larders and I've met with. It's been frank and open discussion. Happy to listen to you and help you where we can. But at the end of the day, we've been elected to run an amalgamated council, and until that changes, that's what we'll do. So that's what we'll do. Is there any update from the Electoral Commission?
Yes. So there's a media release published today through the Office of Local Government, as Dr. Hamilton had indicated. He was short a number of votes, and it doesn't meet the requirements under the Local Government Act. So I can read that media release out if you want me to.
We can pass the vote.
Distribute that.
And as Councillor Lada said, also Councillor Lada and I met in Albury with the Primrose and had a bit of a talk to him about it. So he's got his own ideas, and I'm happy to share those later if you like. So we've got recommendation 1 and 2 moved and seconded. Any further speakers?
I'd just like to say to you that, I think as we're elected as councillors of Snowy Valley Council, as an amalgamated council, and that's our job. I think the other stuff is political, the emergence. I don't think it's anything to do with us as councillors. Our job is to try and do the best job we possibly can for the whole council. That's what we elected and stood for, and that's got to be our focus and got to be continued our focus.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Brings us to number 3.
It says not commit ratepayer resources to a plebiscite on the demerge issue. I just, as a council, trying, it's our goal to be strong, healthy and prosperous local community. And part of that is to have community consultation and listening to the view of the whole community. I too have read chapter 5, 9, and section 16 closely. And at this stage, I don't think the legislation really, from my understanding and from my discussion with other people, really would support it if we did go to a plebiscite. I think this comment to say no ratepayer resources to a plebiscite on the demerge issue is very closed. I'd like it to say at this stage, because legislation may change, and then maybe we could have it may be something that we could do. So to close it like that, I think back us into a corner. And I also think it sets a precedent if we need a plebiscite on something else. We go, remember we were allowed to use.
Are you moving? How are you moving?
Oh.
Then you can discuss it.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'll move that.
Move that not commit ratepayers' resources to a plebiscite.
No, I'm not moving that.
On the demerge issue.
No, I'd like to change it to at this stage.
At this stage.
Yes.
That's what I was getting up to.
Okay.
Or would you like to start? Would you like to start at this stage?
At this stage. And
at this stage, not commit ratepayers' resources to it.
Yeah.
Plebiscite.
I just think it leaves the door
Resolution.
Need a second.
Yeah, I'll just get this right and then we'll get a second. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rock. Now, would you like to continue on, Councillor Ham?
It's very simple. I just don't think we should shut the door completely to this. I just think that legislation may change and maybe a change of government or whatever, and if we're just making a point there that no, never, and I don't think we should say that.
Okay. Speaker against?
I'd speak against it because any motion that we pass is binding only for 3 months. In 3 months' time, you can change your mind, and you're not locked in. Or you can even change it beforehand if you get 3 people. I don't think it's necessary to look at those.
Through the chair, can I just maybe get some sort of an idea of what the general manager feels would be a ballpark figure for a legislative plebiscite that would be binding?
Some information contained in your report there. We did and if the plebiscite was to be conducted at the same time as the legislation, then it was estimated at 8,900 plus GST per question. And if it's to run as a separate process, 89,000 plus GST. So that's on page 22 of your report.
Okay. Any other speakers for or against? I'll put the motion. All in favour? So,
There was 3 of them.
yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Putting the motion. 1, 2,
On the board.
3.
Confusion there, I think.
Yep.
What do we?
This is what we're voting on.
At
At this stage.
Through the chair, if I may, it's just you've already voted on item 1 and 2, so now you're voting on item 3, and Councillor Ham has proposed to change with the first couple of words there, at this stage, not commit. So that's what you're voting on? Yeah.
So I've got 4 hand up, please. Okay. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. Adoption of advocacy priorities. Is our advocacy plan?
Mr. Mayor, I can't hear anything. I'm moving it back.
Just wait a moment. Okay, we have our advocacy plan, and the recommendation is there that we receive the report on the adoption of advocacy priorities and adopt the advocacy plan. Do I have a mover? Councillor Smith, Councillor Lada, Councillor Smith.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just really impressed with the report that was put forward to us, and there's quite a lot of documentation to digest, but it has been very, very well done. There are probably a number of initiatives or issues that need to be clarified before the final report in January. There is one that I would like to make a mention of, which is not shown on our document here, but it is referred to in the advocacy plan report, and that is the design and construction of a tourist route between Batlow and Talbingo on the Yallowan Access Road. I think that is considered quite an important issue by people that live in Talbingo in particular, and also the people that live in Batlow that would like to have better and easier access. It's quite a long way around the way it is at the moment. It would certainly shorten time travelling from this part of the Shire towards the mountains, and of course further towards the coast. So it's not made mention of here in the executive summary, but I just note that it is an important part of the advocacy plan.
Which brings me to, there may be some minor changes, and I'd like to just put a couple there. Number 5, where it says Business Centre of Excellence, I'd like to have a slash there, CUC, Country University Centre. And number 9, also another slash, and Softwood Centre of Excellence slash Softwood Hub.
Mr. Mayor, can I go forward and put point 3 in on the resolution, please? And say,
Yes, but beforehand, can I also suggest, with the indulgence of the mover and the seconder, that adopt the Snowy Valleys Advocacy Plan 2018-19 with minor amendments as approved by the Mayor and the GM.
my point. Thank you.
Thank you. You right with that, Councillor Smith?
Yes.
Councillor, you're the other. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Isselman. Other comments? Any speakers against? Speaking for? Councillor Cross?
I would just like to commend this document. I think it's just a fantastic document that gives all these projects a doability. They're all shovel ready, to use that expression, so that when we go to the state government or the federal government or whoever, our business partners, we can say, look, here it is, this is what we want, this is what we need, this is how you can do it, this is how you can help us. So I really congratulate the staff on getting this organised. It's just a fantastic document for us.
I'm happy to concur with you there. I think it's a great document. Yes. We've seen similar ones since we've joined the JO. Some of the other councils have a similar sort of, in a different format, but it's been valuable for us to go out to these other areas and see what other councils are doing and bring some of these ideas back. So congratulations to the staff who were involved, and Yeah, and it's also something we can add to too, so it's not...
It's a living document.
Yeah.
So questions, please, if I may. I understand the document as has been explained, but to me there are certain elements of our council, like the Batlow cannery building and the buildings down in Camp Cove and so on, and I don't see them being reflected in the document. So could there be a question about that, please? Why not?
If I may, through the Mayor. So this document is about the high-level advocacy across to state and federal government and other particular groups. We've still got our operational plan, which backs all the item-by-item activities that we're doing as council, and we'll be heading into doing a new operational plan coming into the budget process. So all those other items are still there, but we want some hard-hitting ones, and it's well summarised down. So it lets us be very succinct with politicians. This document is able to be broken up, and we can have those discussions and leave them with components of this. Very easy to understand, and should be a great document. You might remember last year we whipped together an advocacy document in 7 days prior to Tumbarumba. So this year we've put a lot more thought into that. We've had a lot more time to discuss it as a council. We've taken on board what the community has said, and we've wrapped that all into one very clear and succinct document.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any chance that we could maybe take the theme or the balance of one project and maybe have them on our Christmas cards that go out to the politicians or whatever as well?
Maybe for next Christmas.
Maybe for next Christmas.
All we want for
Hopefully they won't be there next Christmas.
Unfortunately, we've posted those out. So we're too efficient in that process by the looks of it. But what we will do is heading into the election processes, we'll be making these very clear. And that can be via correspondence as well as specific meetings. The Country Mayors Association and New South Wales local government is running a forum, so we'll make sure that our priorities get up to those people.
And as Councillor Isselman rightly says, there'll be a whole new business of politicians next Christmas.
So is there any chance that those projects can be broken up and put on Facebook and those other mediums so that we can have them out in the
design?
Yeah, definitely.
So no further discussion? Motion's here. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Model Code of Conduct Complaints Statistics Report 2017-18. Two recommendations there. Councillor Lada, Councillor Ham, any comment?
I'm happy to comment if you want to jump. No, I just think this is excellent, and if you have a KPI, you've got it to be real, because it's obviously expensive, and you do have complaints against you, and I suppose congratulations to everyone who's not having to have a code of conduct against you. But just in complaints, as a councillor, the complaint I just get over and over again is that emails aren't answered, and when complaints are put in, they're not responded to. And it sounds really easy. It's obviously a lot harder when you're actually working within council, but it's something that would be great if that was eliminated somehow.
Probably a lower level.
I know it's a lower level, but I just had to get it in there.
And you fitted it in nicely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Councillor General Manager.
Through the Chair, if I may, when we reviewed our statistics recently on our CRM systems, the actual level of satisfaction was very high. I do admit that we can improve our customer service, and that's a focus, and we've got a work improvement team that's working very hard on that project, and a number of different options within council, and we do have to improve our systems on that front, but I know as councillors you do hear people that aren't satisfied. I'd like to give you some assurance that that those statistics are quite low and the satisfaction level is quite high. Hopefully in our quarterly reporting, half-yearly reporting process, we'll be able to provide some of those statistics to council so you can actually see. That isn't saying that we don't need to improve. I definitely agree that we do need to improve, and we can always do that.
Thanks, mate.
Nothing further? All in favour? Carried. Procurement policy, page 33.
Happy to move it.
Councillor Lana. Councillor Cross.
I think this is really good. Once again, it sort of links up with our buy local policy as well, and you know, and ensures that we should be, where possible, supporting local businesses throughout our shire, and you know, providing a bias. That's what you want to call it, because you know, I think we should. If they're in our shire and you know they've set up there and they're in business, well, we should be doing everything we can to support and help local business and buying locally and doing everything we can within our community rather than externally.
Okay. Anything further? Councillor Hanks?
Could I just add to that? I'd just be curious about our banking. Is that are we doing a review of banking to have a local banking service?
The General Manager.
Yeah, through the Chair, I can answer that question. Yes, we are about to go out to tender for our banking services.
Great.
And obviously our local banks providers will be are aware of that. So, great.
Thank you. Nothing further? All in favour? Carried. Credit card authorisation controls. Very topical at the moment. There's one recommendation there. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Wright. Just by way of explanation, I sign off on the General Manager's credit card. The General Manager signs off on the Director's cards, and I don't have a credit card. So that's where it is. Recommendations there. Anything further?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to bring into the report there point 1 where it says no cash advances be allowed. I'd just like to change that from in the report so that we have it stated that you know there are restrictions so that cash advances cannot occur.
I understand. I've been informed that our credit cards don't have the facility to draw cash out. So do you want something in there?
So I'm just pointing out that as it stands there, it sounds like you know it's up to you and discretion whether
Yes.
you do it or not. You know, whereas it's not that
there
way.
is an inability to draw card. But we'll note. Do you want to note that in the report?
Can't change the report, Chair. We can't change the report now, and I agree that it's not clear in the report, but that is the case that you cannot do that.
It's on record now, so it's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
For the motion. Carried. Financial investments. Statement of investments. Councillor Ham. Councillor Wright.
I just am appreciative of the people, of whoever put in the column that we can see from the current month to the last month, so we can see the movement, and that makes these reports more easy to read. Thank you very much.
So you've got your current month, last month, and variations there. Looking at some of the significant expenditures, certainly we went to the pump track yesterday, and it was fantastic. Great to see that just all together in the one area. Grahamstown Road, I've travelled a few times, and it's terrific. Yeah, good to see that those projects coming to an end and being finalised, and they're great. Yep.
Can I just ask a question? What's the pensioners' return funding from the Office of Local Government?
That's the rebates, correct?
Yes, through the Chair, yes.
So they don't get that taken off?
They get a reduction from council for their rates, and then we get reimbursed by the Office of Local Government.
Reimburse them for that amount.
So we don't lose. Anything further on those statements? Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Rock the Turf Music Festival. Can I make a suggestion there that number 2, after 1993, if we just cross out there for a period of 2 years and to change that to review in 3 years? Just so that sort of locks them in a bit definitely, but if we can do that, it makes it a little bit. Do we need to have in order to grow the event? Move that there. Okay. So do I have a... Thank you, Councillor Larder. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Second. Councillor Larder.
Yeah, once again, this is another one of the success stories. You know, they're obviously a hard-working committee, and we've got a number of them across the region, and they do a lot of wonderful work for the community and for providing a tourism opportunity. And let's just hope that it does get the support. They've obviously got a wide range of acts that I've never heard of, but
I thought you were going to declare an interest that you were a Killing Mighty fan.
but nevertheless, it's really, you know, there's been some wonderful performances down there. Darryl Braithwaite and a number of really good, solid Australian iconic acts, and it's had excellent patronage up until now. And we need to help wherever we can with these events. As obviously the general manager is volunteering his time on the bar, so
it's wonderful. It's wonderful, and a hard-working committee involved.
We've got to support all our hard-working communities.
Yeah.
Volunteers.
Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Right across.
Anything further? So, all 4? Yep.
maybe we should all be hopping on the bar.
Yep.
All in favour? Carries. Moving on to Councillor Wright. New South Wales Library funding. Councillor Cross. Councillor Whistleman. Just one slight change in that number 3 recommendation. It should be Canberra Region Joint Organisation, not Operation. And it's CRJO. Good, thank you. Mover and seconder there. Councillor Cross.
Yeah, I think it should be noted that library funding over the last 40 years has been totally eroded to the point of almost no return. And government is expecting, the state government is expecting local councils to pick up the difference, to pick up the tab, to make sure that they remain sustainable. And it's actually a state government funded program that should be given the due respect that it deserves. Libraries are no longer books, they're far more than that. They're e-books, they're audio books, they're community hubs, they're places where you can go for social inclusion. They're warm in winter and cool in summer for people who don't have air conditioning. They're safe havens for people who are feeling vulnerable. So it is vital that we support our Renew Our Libraries campaign. There's a website that you can go onto that you can join and put your name to that to support it, but I strongly suggest that we support it to maintain that level of funding so that we don't have to pick up that shortfall, our ratepayers don't have to pick up that shortfall.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Any further?
Just a point, it's just really important to note that the Office of Local Government has got this is one of their high priorities, their 5 priorities they've chosen from the Albury conference, and it's another element of cost shifting from the government to local council, and we really need to reduce this down as much as we possibly can.
All in favour? That's carried. 10.4, page 71, disaster recovery funding arrangements. There's changes here.
10.3.
Sorry. Service review project. Sorry, just getting ahead of myself. Okay, I went to the final session, or I went to the first session and the final session of this the other day. Quite well received. A lot of people there, including former general managers, former mayors, former directors, so and just lots of community people involved heavily in the community. So let's we've got 2 recommendations there. Councillor Hannon and Councillor Isley. Councillor Hannon.
The feedback I've got from people on the sounding board were just so positive and so pleased to be asked and to have their opinions known, and then the feedback we got back from it was, as a councillor, it was just great to see that in black and white and what people were thinking. I must say I really appreciated the way that the sounding board really pointed to how the community seems to have a very strong passion for us to continue with improved aged care services and improved children's services. So they were 2 things that I believe in and think that council should have a part to play in. So it was good to see that being reinforced.
I agree. And in addition to the community standing board, which I alluded to going to, there was also the telephone survey, which I think was about 450 residents, which is quite substantial, and the online budget allocator tool, so which people took advantage of. So, anything further? Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Now this is relevant. Disaster.
Happy to move in.
Councillor Lada. Councillor Wright. This is an opt-in
10.3
option for us. Any comments? Any questions?
What does it mean? What are our options to go elsewhere, or getting benefits by opting in? What's the situation?
The General Manager.
The Director of Infrastructure and Assets.
Through the Chair, by opting into the new disaster funding arrangement, it enables us to use day labour to undertake flood recovery works, and Snowy Valley Council is in a unique position to have the capacity to undertake those types of works, and that we have capacity out of our normal business as usual to undertake additional works. It also extends the time to undertake the works. There are some cost sharing implications that come with that. Primarily the thresholds for council's contribution increases up to $100,000, just a little bit more than $100,000 as a worst case. But as referred to in the report, this will be well and truly recovered by being able to recover the cost of our costs to undertake the work. So at the very worst, even under the new arrangements, if we engage contractors to do the work, we'd still go to recover the project management, the quality control and the administration that goes with that, and their costs that we wouldn't be able to recover through the opt-out arrangement.
Councillor Smith.
Yes, look, I'd like a little bit of explanation about the extended time limit for emergency works from 21 days to 3 months. How does that, what does that actually involve?
So funding through the Chair, funding that's made available to undertake those works is time limited. So under the opt-out arrangements, you only have the 21 days to do that work, and the funding ends at that point. So you can't claim emergency works, which are 100% funded. Under this new arrangement, we've got extra time to undertake those works using internal resources potentially up to 3 months. So that extends the time that money is available to us to undertake those works.
So this is for storm and tempest and floods and old section 44?
Yeah, that's managed a little different, but yes, similar type of actions, yes.
Any further questions? Any? Put the motion, all in favour? Carried. 10.5, McMeekin Street, Tumbarumba, possible land sale. There's 4 recommendations there.
Happy to move that.
Councillor Larder. Councillor Wright. Councillor Larder.
I think it's a good opportunity, and we should take the opportunity while it exists.
Councillor Bissell.
I just have a reservation in relation to this, and particularly in relation to the real estate valuation of the property and how that has been set up. I'm familiar more with us receiving valuations of properties at council level with, a lot of areas around them solved for the same, that sort of a report rather than just a very simple, straightforward, this is how much it costs situation. Just wondering if there's a reason why we have this simpler arrangement for the sale of this Crown land?
I think it's freehold land.
Freehold land, sorry.
Through the general manager.
Through the chair. That was the information that was made available to us by the real estate that we asked to undertake the appraisal. I suppose it is important to note that this will be an expression of interest process, so it will go to the market. It will be open to everybody to make offers and bids on that land. So hopefully that will drive the price and make sure that we are realising the actual value of the land through that process.
Certainly opens up some opportunities for development.
I think with the plus and minus with the 20%, gives a fair bit of flexibility to you.
This is a standard practice through the local government arrangement.
If I may, through the chair, yes, it does comply with the Local Government Act and our procurement policy. It is a little bit unusual to be doing this a one-off. We do have information prepared for council in 2019, community by community across the whole Snowy Valleys area to look at all council's land and start to make some strategic decisions about what we're going to do with land in the future. And that may mean that there's more land comes up for sale, or we need to acquire land to do certain things into the future. So that'll be coming back to council in 2019.
And the previous council had offered this for sale.
I understand that this previous council had looked at this block previously and hadn't attracted anyone at that time, so that's why we decided to do this one as a single entity while there's a possible likely person interested.
Anything further? All in favour? Carried. Page 84, Manus Blue-Green Algae Management Assistance. Councillor Ham.
Last week, Mayor, General Manager, Glenn McGrath, we all went down to Tumor and met with the locals down there, and understandably they were distressed and concerned about the prospect that there may be another severe algae bloom this year. So this report is all about what assistance there is if this happens. And so that people can at least source domestic water. There were a few concerns. There was a concern about where's the funding coming from for the report that's being done. And I noticed in here that part of is that we have to advertise if the water has got blue-green algae bloom, and that I know will be done well on social media, but it needs to be in the paper, certainly the Tumber Times, and someone suggested because of the Greek, if the water is affected far down, that it needs to probably go into the Courier as well, because people at Greek don't or Cancoban don't receive the Tumba time. So that's just a suggestion there. It was a sad meeting, the fact that people are just so concerned. I think it needs to be said that it is not the council's view that we stop the dam and let all the water out. That isn't a possibility. They were concerned about their livestock, and if the livestock are drinking from blue-green algae affected creeks and what they can do. And as a council, we're a bit limited. We can only provide domestic water, but there is, there is the option that you can apply for drought funding, because it would come under that, and get some assistance in providing alternative water ways to source water. So I think blue-green algae is just obviously a concern in many council areas.
Thank you, Councillor Hannon. Thanks for coming to the meeting.
If that remains through the chair, it was a very good meeting. I'm very pleased that we've acted proactively to provide this report to council to look at what support we can provide to the people in that area prior to it being an issue, and we don't even know if it's going to be an issue this year. I did hear very loudly the community's concern to the funding source that we looked at the last council meeting, and I have undertaken to do a review of that and present that back in our next quarterly budget report to see if we can fund that from an alternative source, and also agreed that we will consult with the community further about the expenditure of that money that's currently held in reserve from the fire event in that community. So looking forward to that, and again, a great report. We know what's happening there. We do have to have a look further into the impact on livestock. So this is about domestic water, but it doesn't deal with the livestock issue, which we've said that we will look further into.
I'm concerned that cost might be involved, and I know that this is difficult for many people who are on land and rely on water that has to be clean. But 2.B, supply and deliver of domestic water up to affected residents, 13,000 litres. What sort of cost would that include? What individual cost would that be to us, and how would that be covered?
Through the chair, that's included in the 15,000 that we're suggesting this scheme in its entirety would cost impact of that. I suppose, depending on the distance, it's hard to quantify how much one tanker load of water will cost, but it's certainly sufficient to deliver a number of, based on last year, it's certainly sufficient to cover the cost of what the demand is for that.
So
that's probably a better way to explain.
So it's not just for testing; it's for
both. Yes, for both for the testing and for the cartage of the water, supply of water.
Okay. And we'll continue to liaise with the University of Technology and DPI and LLS and anyone else involved, as well as the landowners. So, anything further?
I think it's it's important to remember that the dam is a great asset to this whole community, not just to the Tumba people. It's a great tourist asset, and just a great asset to everybody around the place who goes and camps there and enjoys the fishing, etc.
And the camping's growing, isn't it?
It is growing all the time. The 3 camps out there, quite busy.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. So, nothing further? Put the motion. Favour? Carried. Thank you. Tumbarumba Caravan Park redevelopment project. Quite an extensive report. 10 recommendations.
Happy to move all 10, but on the end of 10, I think there needs to be park.
Yes.
Park.
Yeah, missing one word there. Thank you for that.
Caravan.
You'd just like us to have the final word, don't you?
That's right.
And I'm happy to second that.
Seconded, Councillor Hand. Councillor Larkin.
Look, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Without sort of getting into too much, there's obviously a lot of background to this, and we've had a lot of public debate about it. And I think it's probably just, the reality is now that we've got ownership of the development, and we need to make sure that it's fit for purpose for what we can afford, and what we can manage, and what's probably a reasonable outcome for the community and for us. So, I think this is a good development from where we were previously. And I think we just need to move on from where we were and get something there that can be used and everyone can enjoy, and hopefully bring some tourism and the other purposes that it's been built for as well. So.
And I hear they're fully booked out, and the kitchens, the temporary kitchens are in place.
Can I ask a question?
Councillor Pitcher.
It's fairly bare around the structures that are down there presently. Is there any immediate plan to put some advanced trees in situ?
Yeah, through the chair, there's certainly a second phase to this work and the upgrade of the caravan park, and that's when we start looking at things like landscaping, pedestrian lighting, how we can improve the amenity across the whole caravan park. But at this stage, it's just about getting the accommodation units finished and getting a certificate of occupancy for those so they could be occupied. Stage 2, we'll look at landscaping, trees and those.
So do we have money for that then?
Councillor Pitcher.
Well, I think that's delaying it too long. It looks so bare at the moment that it's a bit of a block, but I'd move that we look at putting established trees near to the new amenity block.
I think
So,
I...
Mr Mayor, could I move to committee so we can have a conversation?
Yes.
Please, I move to committee.
Seconder. Councillor Rodwell, in favour. Moving to committee. Councillor Pitcher.
It just looks so atrociously bare. I mean, the bare buildings are starting with another asphalt put up right to them. That will be reflecting a lot of heat back up into the metal building. I think it will be quite hot. Apart from not having any shading for the parking and the like, and I don't think it's a big ask. I think that it's not difference to the attraction of that new block.
It may well be best to plant, if you're talking deciduous trees, to plant them in the autumn, so they get a bit of a chance to get hold rather than trying to water them through.
Yeah, but autumn's only a little way away. We're in summer now, so it's only 3 months.
But I think I recall in the original budget there was 200,000 put aside for the camp kitchen, and landscaping as well. I think that was part of that. So maybe we can find something in that.
Yeah, through the chair. 200,000 has been allocated for the camp kitchen, and that's in the process of being constructed, delivery on site and operational, hopefully February.
Right.
In the new year. Whether there's some capacity in that budget for additional works, I can't say.
My memory was that it was, even though it wasn't additional, it was landscaping was part of that 200,000 from my memory. Whether there's any money left for landscaping once the camp kitchens have been constructed is another thing. But should there be?
If I may, through the chair, certainly if we have financial capacity to do those amenity type things in this stage, we'll certainly look at that. But it's looking at this stage like there's not financial capacity, but we'll be building those things into the stage 2 process.
I still don't think that's good enough, quite frankly. It's easily to be planted in order, and not wait for stage 2, 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, you know. I'll help supply the trees if you wish.
very generous, Councillor Fisher. Will move that way and we'll look towards it then. Councillor Ryder.
Did ask a question some time ago, but there was a whole heap of shade sails that we removed from the car park behind the fruit market there in the complex, and I don't know where they went.
Sorry, through the chair, I'm not aware of that. But we can certainly look into it.
Take it on notice.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a comment about this document, and that is that what I found really helpful was the timeline that had been provided at the end of this document, and it's given me a much better understanding of the background of all the contention and difficulty that's been associated with this caravan park issue, and I commend the staff and the General Manager for producing this document and giving us that understanding so that we can move forward from here without recrimination, but to understand how we've got ourselves into this situation, and that there is a hope to get out of this and to learn from it, and to finally produce a caravan park that the Shire can be really happy with and that the people will use. But yes, it's going to take a little bit more time to raise the funds required for stage 2. But if we do follow the plans, then we're going to have a great facility.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Usman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just taking the opportunity to make comment on point 9 in reference to infrastructure works reserves and raising the awareness of the infrastructure works reserves shows us a good indication of how we can, in the future, potentially go ahead and continue raising funds through private works, and we've got the capacity to do private works now, as has been mentioned and tabled earlier. This is a good indication of how infrastructure works dividend reserves can be promoted in the future, and it's something we as a council should definitely look towards and see that we can move this forward in the future. It's something that's very positive for us, and thinking about funding opportunities that we may have. This is one that we have certainly got an opportunity to look at.
It's also about sustainability as well.
If I may, through the chair, certainly realising the benefits that we can with our current workforce in that area. It's been quite successful still, but part of our sustainability project that we've just launched off on is to look at how to maximise that into the future. Local government all across Australia is fighting with that issue of being able to fund its infrastructure. We heard our auditor here this morning saying that that's an issue. We can't continue to just rely on the ratepayer to fund that. We have to find other sources of income, and what a great project this one is. It's been successful in the past. We need to look at how we can bring that back and realise some real dollars for our community and offset some of those costs, because we can't, as a local government, continue to fund that from ratepayer funds only. And
if I might add to Mr Mayor, we're in a golden opportunity with Snowy 2.0 about to be approved, and the opportunities for tendering in that area are very real, and we need to be really careful that we don't miss the boat.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Councillors. But at the same time, it's always handy to have some money in reserve if something goes pear-shaped.
Yeah, Mayor, I just think it's good. It's a great report. I've enjoyed reading it, and sort of clarified in my mind some of the issues that happened and some of the mistakes that have been made by way back from the start off. And I think we've got to acknowledge that there were some mistakes made by all of us, and now we've got a plan to go forward. And I think that's probably the most important thing. We have a solid plan where we know where our financial obligations are going to be and how we can get on top of it, and we need to make sure that it's right for the operators, that they've got some future, that they can see where they're going along the way as well. I think that's it. Well, not only whoever it is, they've got to have some security, long-term security, not just short-term.
Great. Councillor
Just in regard to any future lease, I mean, if these caravan parks are profitable, which one would think they must be if somebody wants to get involved in a lease, then if we're looking for other sources of income, is there not the opportunity for us to employ somebody to actually go in there as an employee and run it, so that we get the benefit of the?
If I may, through the Mayor, yes, Council's certainly looking at the options. We've got a program on looking at all of our caravan parks across the whole area and looking at development plans. We've already got for some of them and refining those up, and then looking at the mode of operation into the future. So, yeah.
I was involved in a caravan park here many years ago, and the council used to run it. It was a bloody disaster, to be quite honest. And unless you have it run by somebody who cares and who's really it's theirs and they make it work, it'll like work. And trust me, it doesn't work. You know, employees don't have the same passion for the job as somebody that owns it and runs it.
So that's a nice segue, really, because the operator, who we both know and I highly respect, and thank you for the frank report of the good, bad and the ugly. There is some good. But there's just a couple of points that I think we should, in the report, that just sound a bit harsh. And on page 90, it is intended that this expenditure will be recovered through a variation of the government grant funding and a new long-term lease with a new caravan park operator. I think that's being a little bit jumping the gun, because we may not have a new caravan park operator. I think we have to be careful.
If I may respond to them one by one, through the Chair, I think that that item refers to the fact that the lease has expired and there will be a new operator, and that new operator may very well be the existing operator, but it's acknowledging the fact that there's a new lease going to be put in place.
Okay, and then page 93, the federal grant funding included a contribution from the caravan park leasing as a condition of the funding has not yet been realised. And I think that's a chicken and the egg thing. I mean, they weren't going to contribute if we're not, you know, if, like, if the lease wasn't signed, so why would they contribute?
Long-term lease, it's got to be a long-term.
Yeah, so, you know, it just reads a little bit bad on the operator, which I don't think was the intent.
I don't think that's the intent.
Yeah, and then and also within the report it just said that the current operator has advised verbally that they will not continue with this operations facility. I don't think we really should be taking it further, anything verbally. It's in such an operation at the moment. I imagine this goes out on expression of interest and handled professionally.
I think our operator is pretty passionate about caravan parking. He's done a huge amount of work himself and his family, and he keeps passionate easily, and as he should, because if he's not passionate about it, it's not going to work.
Yeah. And it's a big job.
It's a huge job.
Huge job. And he's appreciated.
So we're ready to move out. Councillor Whistler? Councillor Lard? All in favour? Okay. Which brings us back to, do we have those moved?
Yes.
Yeah. Any further comments? Motions, all 10, all in favour? Carries. Thank you. Status report, capital works program. Page 108. Councillor Larder. Councillor Wright. Councillor Larder.
Firstly, I just congratulate the director responsible for this report, because it's really first time we've sort of had that integrated look at what we're doing out in the field, as opposed to just looking at words. We can actually see the progress, yeah, there's some wonderful achievements to date, isn't there? Really, when we look at it, you don't realise what this council's achieved until you see it in writing.
And what we are achieving.
What we are achieving, yeah, exactly. And just to make note of them there, you know, there's the resurfacing of the bull paddock, resurfacing of the Tumbarumba sports field, the bike pump track at Tumbarumba, which you know, world-class facility right here in Tumbarumba. I mean, it's done with expertise and without you know, a lot of fanfare, but it's, you know, just getting on with the job and doing stuff. Reconstruction of the Grahamstown Road, the Forest Road upgrade at Batlow, Cemetery Road at Adelong, the rural road culverts, Brindabella Road resheeting. I mean, none of these things are easy. I mean, you know, when you think of the works that we've gone on, the difficulties in going to the Brindabella to actually undertake these jobs, it's quite significant. I mean, it's, you know, you're remote for the majority of that. Wandalga heavy patching, water reticulation, various capital works projects, just the things that you don't see in the local paper, but you know, we take for granted. Cancobe and Rose Garden redevelopment, the survey of the Brindabella Road, Adelong Creek Gate Works, Go-Cup Road. I mean, the progress that's been made out there at Go-Cup Road is phenomenal. It's looking really, really good, and what a great thing that's going to be for the benefit of the whole community. You know, the fact that we can go, you know, safely and timely now. You know, linking up with these buses out of Gundagai to take us direct to Canberra. So yeah, look, Hines, that is great. You know, the fact that you've been so interactive with us and you've got that there. It's really really good stuff.
Very impressive. I'd like to just make one.
No.
I'm sorry. Further, Mayor, can I just ask, with the bike pump, yes, and I agree, it was just tremendous watching everyone yesterday, but it seems to have gone over budget.
Yeah, through the chair, the budget shown in the report doesn't include the contribution from the Pine Community Fund, so that's yet to be added to that, and then we'll be
well, then we'll be over.
if that gets added onto the budget.
Because that's $50,000.
Yeah, that lifts that budget, and we're currently under budget. We've still got the commitments and everything to come in on that yet, so we'll be able to reconcile that probably in the next few weeks and see exactly how we've finished that.
Councillor Wright.
I just on the whole report, the water bubbler that's down at the pump track. The amount of kids who used it yesterday was just amazing. It's a great thing, and I think that was the youth council that requested that from memory. And yeah, it's good to see it in and working and working at the right time. That's excellent to see.
Just as a note before I go to what I was going to say. So there's the funding for Councillor Pritchard's trees at the Caravan Park. But anyway, might I just ask a question we have at Brindabella Road, page 116, the resheeting. I know here 5 kilometres has been resheeted for $340,000. I'm wondering if that resheeting and upgrade of the road is going to be equivalent to the $150 million we have in our recommended funding, and you know, how does that sit? I realise I'm asking a bit of a dangerous question here, but you know, the Brindabella Road could be upgraded by stages, and the potential to have the road upgraded to vehicle access initially and then move on to, you know, the 4-lane highway is potentially there. I'm just asking through the chair, how does this $340,000 for 5 kilometres stack up against $150 million?
Through the chair, the resheeting was just very much renewal of the existing. So yeah, existing surface obviously over time is significantly degraded, so we're renewing that surface. We weren't actually changing the geometry or widening or upgrading the road from that perspective. So very, very different cost model obviously attached to that. As referred to in the report, we're getting very close to receiving the final design drawings and detailed bill of quantities for the 10.6 kilometre section from Brindabella Valley through to the ACT border. And that'll enable us to cost the upgrade of that section of road in detail, and then that will help us better understand what it may cost to upgrade Brindabella Road in its entirety. So that'll start setting some benchmarks that we can then use to get a more accurate costing, if you like. At this stage, it's very much guesstimates as to what that could go.
Thank you.
Just while we're on reshooting, at a previous council meeting, we did ask a question about us acquiring our own bitumen maker. I was just wondering how we're progressing with that. And secondly, I noticed there was a TV program I think yesterday which highlighted a council in, I think, Tasmania that were recycling plastic bags and low-grade glass and they were turning bitumen.
Yeah, we want that.
Yeah, how do we get that?
And the bitumen lasts 15 years longer.
15 years longer.
So through the chair, at the moment we procure our bitumen through the local government procurement panel, so it's been out to competitive tender, so we procure it that way. We have storage vessels, so we actually store it and hold it on our site, so we can draw on it when we need to. The RMS also use it from time to time. In regard to the using rubber or recycled products in bitumen, that's something that we're definitely watching and looking at. It's currently being trialled, and we're watching that space very carefully. If there's opportunities to get involved in that and roll that sort of thing out regionally, we certainly take that on.
Maybe through the chair, that's the sort of thing like that came out of Albury that we need to, as a council, be a leader on, because I think, there'll be government support for it better, and there's obviously community support. It's a no-brainer. We've got Valmar and all these other, organisations that are,
A lot of income coming back
We want
in.
a circular economy.
Yeah, we should be looking at it. So, I mean, can we maybe get a report?
Through the chair, we've got a waste management strategy coming back to council next year, and we can certainly look at these options as part of our innovation. With some of these things, does come a little bit higher risk, and you may have seen recently some stuff in the news about a particular job that was redone. It caused some significant pain because it all ripped up as the trucks went across it. So just got to make sure that if we're going to invest in some of these things, that it has been tested to the point where that there's some security around it. But yes, great idea.
So we've got that report there, and once again I commend it to you. It's wonderful, and thank you for organising that.
Just one final question, if
Yeah.
I may, Mr. Mayor. Page 125, other capital construction works programs and delivery in 18 and 19 include, and I note Battler outdoor gym equipment. Is that the project that's emerged from Gym at Take Two and the funding that was raised for an outdoor equipment?
Sorry, I can't answer that question.
Yeah, through the chair, I'd have to take that on notice. I'll check that out and bring a note back to council or something.
Thank you. With that, put the motion all in favour. Carried. Brings us up to the minutes of the committee meetings. There's quite a few to do. First one is the Aboriginal Liaison Committee meeting, and I note there that there's the MOU, which needs to be adopted and then later signed. And also adopt the Aboriginal protocols and practices policy. 4 recommendations there. Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Hand. Discussion?
The Aboriginal Liaison Committee is developing quite well. It had 4 new members at the last meeting from Tumbarumba, where they hadn't been any before, and so it's progressing well. And they're quite supportive of the thought of getting a bus service from Tumba to Gundagai to connect up with the Wagga Canberra proposed service that could perhaps go through Runda. The first time service that community. that's a little while off, but it could perhaps occur. So basically it's progressing very well, the Aboriginal music.
Thanks, Councillor Pritchard. Let's put the motion, all in favour? Okay, thank you. Next one is Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. Councillor Ham. Councillor Wright. Councillor Ham.
At this meeting, I'd like to support the recommendations. I think because we're looking at the terms of employment for David Maxwell, Alison Forsyth, and then further on, Glenys Francis and Ian Chappie, it's quite appropriate to thank them for their time. They give of their time at very little cost, if any at all, and it's great to have people outside the council bubble to comment on the finances within the community.
I notice Mr. Chappie's just left the room, so
Yeah.
quite good.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Ian. Yep, okay, so we've got recommendations there. Any further discussion? Recommendations? Carried. Okay, we've got 2 in a row sets of minutes for the Tumbarumba Youth Council. So 11.3, 2 recommendations there. Councillor Wright. Councillor Cross. Put the recommendations. All in favour? Carried.
Just whilst we're on that, just maybe acknowledge to the youth that assisted the General Manager and myself at the White Ribbon campaign against violence towards women by men. The General Manager and I had the pleasure of participating in that event, and it was a great day that the youth obviously attended, and there was a number of different organisations that were represented there that do wonderful work in the community and highlighting this terrible situation where men obviously don't do the right thing by their partners and women, and it's something that we need to highlight and say that it's not acceptable, and do everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen in society.
Thank you, Councillor Love. Unfortunately, I had to miss that day. So I would have liked to have been there. The second lot of minutes is the Youth Council 28th of November, from the Youth Council. Councillor Wright. Councillor Whistle. The motion, all in favour? Carried.
Just a comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor, on the strategic plan and referencing Tumbarumba Youth Council and Tumbarumba Youth Council and Tumbarumba Youth Council standing as individual bodies. I do think it's time that we possibly look at having them called the Snowy Valleys Council, Tumba Division and Tumbarumba Division Youth Councils, and work towards, as a council, encouraging these young people to be more involved in council operations and having opportunities to meet in council chambers and meet collectively once or 2 times a year, but to bring to the attention and support of the youth director the opportunity for these 2 youth group councils to become a youth council rather than a youth group.
Yes.
The work is wonderful what these young people are doing, and the commitment is amazing, but I do think the opportunity for us as a council to, in the new year, bring more attention to the fact that we need to give these 2 very, very productive groups of our community more support as a council. And I'm just making that comment before we move away from those opinions.
Fair comment. What we move those? Yes. We did. Railway Precinct Committee.
The 2 recommendations there, Mr. Mayor.
We're moving them both?
We'll move them both, please.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Whistleman. Councillor Pritchard, any-
There's no major recommendation there, but eventually we really felt that we should improve the tree planting in the grassed area between the railway and the Snowgrounds Highway and put more seating in there for people who stop there to refresh, so to speak, and to use it, go down and use the toilets, but ultimately make it suitable for farmers market if that opportunity arises in the future.
Councillor.
Yeah, just on that note, Councillor Pritchard's obviously raised a good point. It'd be interesting to get an audit of the infrastructure there to see whether it, what's needed with regard to power and all those sorts of assets, because that is one area that has previously been used as an emergency evacuation point for caravan parks, and has been a very essential part of our emergency response with regard to sort of immediate movement of being next door to the SCS and the RFS. It's a significant spot. So, I mean, if there was any opportunities for funding for that type of infrastructure through emergency management, that might be an option as well.
Councillor Wright. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, would it be a good spot to have as a overnight free camping for caravans and campers coming through Tumut too, like we have here in Tumbarumba? That one here is used a hell of a lot, and that would be fairly a good opportunity for Tumut as well.
I think I couldn't really agree, because it's in direct competition with the caravan park, which is just adjacent. And,
free campers don't go to caravan parks ever.
But also it would interfere with the markets of the Lions market.
I think the golf club are looking at something along those lines, which would be well with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably a bit looking at. Okay.
Just in regards to these markets, these farmers markets, have we got any policy on what they are or what they aren't? I mean, because just an observation. What I would personally not like to see. I don't mind people coming in to sell their produce as long as it's local, but what we don't want to happen is, the butcher from Wagga coming into Tumut to sell their product at a farmer's market and marketing it as, local produce, when all of this is just the meat from the Wagga butchery. And, the Tumut and the Tumbarumba and all the other just, struggle.
So, recommendation? The recommendation, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Batley Development League?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Smith, thank you.
Note that there are...
We'll just get a second at first, Councillor Smith. Councillor Cross? There you go.
I note that there are two meetings reported on here. The AGM was conducted on the same night as the ordinary meeting, and I was involved in running the election of the new body of people. I wanted to just congratulate and thank the people that have been so actively involved in the Batley Development League for quite a long time, and the dedication, particularly the office bearers. The chair again accepted the responsibility of taking on the chairmanship and is continuing in that position. We do have a new secretary because of the ill health of the previous secretary, but I thank all of them for their service and for standing again for these positions. We also had at the ordinary meeting Andrew Burke from Council with a report on the sound show proposal for Batlow, and he's been very helpful in that regard. There's one other thing that I just wanted to make a comment on from the ordinary section of the meeting. The comments that, or the things that they've listed here, one of them is the 40 km/h zone in Batlow Road, and they're going to be forwarding a letter to Council asking for a progress report about it. This is a very vexing issue for Batlow because of the senior citizens village directly across the road from the supermarket, huge log trucks and other trucks coming down that main road, people coming down that road at quite a high speed. There have been many incidents where people with walkers and frail aged people crossing the road to go to the supermarket have nearly lost their lives through people going through there. It's really important, and if that we as council support that effort to reduce that speed limit, or to put in speed bumps or something, signs to warn people that there are elderly, frail people crossing that road. So I just highlight that comment for our consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Cross.
Is there a pedestrian crossing there, or would that be
No, there's not.
would that be a better solution?
We can refer to the traffic committee, it's probably the best. Councillor Lucas.
If I could possibly ask Councillor Smith, the annual general meeting, page 180, there are two questions I have. One is the financial report that's mentioned in the annual general meeting is not submitted for us to review. So we're not seeing the annual report of the three committees that they represent. And also I'm questioning what happens here with it says election of core members to have voting rights. I don't remember seeing anything like that in our 355 committee agenda.
Terms of reference.
Terms of reference. I'm not sure what that means, and I'll just ask for some questions.
I can clarify that, because the terms of reference given by council to the Battler Development League state that there have to be 8 voting members, but that there are, can be other members of the committee, but they don't have voting rights. That's not Battler Development League's decision. That's something from the council to them that they've accepted. In terms of the other reports, I can't comment on that. That would be a matter of contacting the Secretary or the Treasurer of the Development League to ask them to include those other reports.
Councillor Smith, can you ask that they're provided for the next meeting as well as the terms of reference? That'd be good. Thank you. All right, I'd like to put this motion. All in favour? Carried. Festival of Falling Leaf. Councillor Ryder. Councillor Ham, thank you.
Only to say, Mr Mayor, that I'm a little disappointed that this has been sort of chopped up in so much as the market day has been taken out. And I think as a council we should be making some approaches to organisations like the SES or the RFS or whoever in the community to see whether there's some opportunity to take up that assistance level to get this back on the track again, because I think without that day is not as successful.
Yeah, very good. That's good. Councillor Richard.
I'd support John's comments absolutely. With tourism, we have to identify attractions which no one else has. I mean, the Festival of Falling Leaf not only has had a long history, but it showcases the unique all sort of features of humour, which a lot of these other towns don't. It's all very well to support festivals like rock, surf and all that sort of stuff, but they can be held anywhere. And so I think we lost that. I don't know whether it can be resurrected in time this year.
Yeah, but still
Certainly take that back from through the council staff to the committee and see what we can do.
so we can do something very quickly. Okay.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, one other. Again, financial report, see attached. Not. And that's important because we're looking at seeing what the Festival of Falling Leaf Committee are actually doing and what their situation is. And we can't possibly make some of those decisions on not having a financial report.
We might assist you with more information on option A deficit 550,
yes.
option B deficit 750.
Yes,
so
right, exactly.
Clarify that.
And also, I'm just questioning where we as council sit in relation to being a sponsor in the Falling Festival, and whether that sponsorship is going to be upgraded and the significance of that in relation to us financially, but also to the festival committee.
Thank you.
So then we'll take that on as listening.
Got the motions, all in favour? Carried. Glenroy Heritage Reserve Committee, 3rd of November.
Okay.
Councillor Hand? Yeah. Councillor Rusman, did you want to mention that there's no councillor role?
Yes.
Sorry, there's no
Financial report.
financial report. Again, so.
Hand and right.
Or any of the other reports mentioned in the report.
So it may well be they're coming in and being permitted, but we'll wait until that's happened.
The Glenroy Heritage Reserve Committee, I'm a delegate to that, but I've never made a meeting, I never know when they're on, so it's great to have these minutes come through, and I'll try to make one in February. I'm just, through the chair, does anyone know about the Button Hut and whether that's been passed? It just looks like they're having a bit of trouble getting their plans passed through council, and when we were there and had a look around.
Yeah, through the chair, they have written into us, and we've escalated that at the moment. So it's getting some attention to see what the issues are around that, and we'll be talking to the committee soon.
And is it council's job to fix the whiteouts and the European cross?
It is council infrastructure, I understand.
So it's
May I comment on that? I mean, there's already treatment being done for white ants. There's a kid that lives underneath that door. And I think we should be careful with the environment.
Thank you for that.
before the bomb that is.
All around the partnership, yeah.
Put those recommendations. Thank you, Councillor Lara. I think we'll move in a second.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So all in favour? Carried. Cancaven Community Committee. Councillor Ham. Councillor Smith, you seconding that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a couple of comments here. Just first, Madam Chair, what's happening with the hall at Cancaven?
Over here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at this stage, we're working with Snowy Hydro. So as we know, the existing hall has got an asbestos issue. We've done some investigative work on that, and we're working with Snowy Hydro on a design at the moment. Once that design's finished, we'll be looking at what the options are to fund. But certainly demolition of the existing hall and a reconstruction of the new hall. The asbestos issue is and the age of the building and state of the building is such that we're going for a new construction. The funding from Snowy Hydro is because they'll be moving their visitor centre out of the station there and into the hall, so that will create even more use around that hall. So, and it'll be purpose built for the community.
Any time frame on that?
I'm not aware at this stage of the time frame. I'm aware that our staff are working with them and keeping the community informed of it.
Okay. And then just a comment that Councillor Schmidt and Wright, and we're trying to make up a regular time to meet with the councillors once a month. So that our community liaison meeting.
Councillors meet with the community.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Nothing further? Put the recommendations further? Carried. Thank you. Summerfest. Just a missing word there. That should be in the report. Should be pump track, I think. So Councillor Ham's moving recommendations. Councillor Wright seconding them.
And then I'm actually referring more so to the last meeting. Just there was some talk about terms of reference there, and there was talk about media comment and confidentiality. And in the terms of reference, it does actually say the committee has the authority to make comments, develop and deliver media and marketing campaigns relevant to the Tumbarumba Fest event only. And the General Manager has said that that is consistent and there's no need for any further changes to occur. So the terms of reference to remain as is.
Thank you. Nothing further, I'll put those recommendations. Carried. Tumbarumba Historical Society Committee. From the Council Hand, Council Wright.
You may go first, Bruce. Talking too much over you.
We do know that this all did take a fair while to get the probity for the shed to be moved and things, but I think that's one of the things that's happened. It did take a long time, but I think it's all happening now as it should, so it's pleasing to hear.
Just be good if it was expedited a bit more next time.
Expedited is
Yeah. And just something else, I'm not sure if the people from Schumett and Battler are aware that the Tumbarumba Historical Society make a really, really fabulous calendar, and its cost is $6. And it's always got an interesting picture and who the people are and everything like that. It's a really excellent calendar, and previous. No, but we can, I think, right to our next one. Is normally the council buy 10 and pay for 20 just to up it a little bit, and I would like that to happen again, and maybe every council would get one.
There's no conflict of interest with councillors' wife or handling on the calendar?
No, I'm not old enough.
I have been on there in the past.
Well, there you go.
Only for the Cicada program.
So could that happen?
I would reduce that.
We'll probably have to move a motion along the lines that we make a donation on 356 or...
I suggested from memory, I believe that the request has already come through and been dealt with under our delegations, so that our director will follow up on that and report back to council through an email. That's okay?
But I do recommend it to everyone. It's a great company.
The big calendar.
Super. Just point 207, Mr. Mayor. Page 207. 1, 2, 3, 4. Point 4. The Historical Society are going to undertake weed control and car body removals. I mean, is that something volunteers? It's a full thing to be able to do, or are they getting tenders to do that work?
Chair, my understanding is this is a very active group in the Tumbo community, and they do lots of things and get in there. They're covered under our policies, and they go through the various safety inductions and that. So
That's fine. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
It's just in
very, very active group. Yeah, it's great to see. Wouldn't survive without their contributions.
Okay, so recommendations there? Recommendations, all in favour? Carried. That concludes our meeting. So I'd like to thank you all for your attendance today. I'd like to thank the Mayor, Australian Mayor, John Rooney, for being with us today. And, that he's had a good time. Thank the public gallery, some who stuck around. Thank you. Very resilient. And look, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Christmas and a prosperous New Year. And also extend my sincerest thanks and wishes to the councillors, to the General Manager, the executive team and all the staff for the last 12 months. I think it's been a great 12 months. I've really enjoyed most of it, and I think we've given this report, this business plan, we've seen some real advancement in what we've done. So thank you very much for a wonderful year, and look forward to a prosperous new year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.